we are just so happy that there is this new outlook towards education, and which will drive the country, and hopefully we'll be able to unlock the demographic dividend that we are talking about, because then we will not let just the time decide the child's course of their life, but we will really be making difference in that timeline to help them achieve what they are capable of, right? Because we all have gone through schooling, and we all have gone through, but it has just been like passing standard after standard. Nobody really came to us and said, you should start focusing on this. I'm not saying that all of this will happen overnight, but at least there is this thinking, there is this possibility. So I'm very happy with where we have reached, but I think it's just 1% of where we could be, right? But it's a start, right? I have also been a critic of the system. It's very easy to be a critic, but then you either be on the fence and critique everything, or you get inside, take a positive outlook, work with the system, and make a difference.
Good evening, everybody. Today I have Aditya Shah with me, and this talk is going to be phenomenal. Aditya, the first question I want to ask you is, how did you go from working at a subway, straight to the government, to the Sachivalaya? Tell me how you did that.
Yeah, I think the common thing in both of those things were bread and butter, literally, right? I think for me, one thing was common throughout my life was keep doing something, right? Like I had to work hard, and I always wanted to be the hardest working person in the room wherever I'm there. And so when I was at Subway, I had no clue on how to make a sandwich. And one day, some NRI women came and told me, "Oh, you make nice sub." And I was like, "Oh, that's achievement for me." And that journey of 16 years, and now when I work with government on some projects at Sachivalaya, when there is this appreciation for the work and the impact that you see of the work, that keeps you going, right? And that's how you keep learning. And we all are in education, we all work for education. If we can't be learners, then what can we really do in education?
Why did you become that guy who wants to work the hardest in the room?
I think so. There are people who have some liberty to fail, right? Because of where they come from, and that's a privilege, and that's a great privilege. Fortunately, unfortunately, I never had that privilege. So I really didn't had an opportunity to fail. So I had to work maybe so much harder so that I can keep moving forward. So that acceleration came much later in my career, but maybe because that hard work was there constantly, there was this push which eventually took me in a better place, right? I'm very satisfied that way of whatever I've done in my life, from where I started to where I am. God has been very kind.
But at a time when people are trying to be more and more lazy, do less and less work, people say, oh, you got to do smart work and less hard work. You're someone who's putting in the effort. You're burning the midnight oil, and you're just burning so much energy, going out there and putting in so much effort. And now I see that you're doing incredible work. 70 lakh students. Was that a number that rings a bell to you? What did you do for the government?
Yeah, in fact, like most part of my career, I was working in the private school space, right? And then once you are in that space, you also feel, oh, I should start a school. I can run a better school. But then how many students will you impact? 500,000, 5,000, right? And fortunately, this opportunity came my way to work with the government, where Gujarat has more than 70 lakh students in government schools and another 40 lakh students in private schools. Now, there was one single thought for me, saying that even if I turn my needle 360 degree in the private school space, I might not be able to make an impact that I can do with even a 1 degree shift in a government space, right? And if education is not for impact, then I don't really think that you should really be involved or get yourself so invested in education if you don't think scale. So I think whatever opportunities I have got, where somewhere I don't know how much impact we would be able to create, but being the optimistic person that I am, I'm sure there is an impact of whatever work we are doing. Maybe it will start small, but it can hopefully going forward yield better results for the country and for those children, most important.
What did you do? What did you do for the government? How did you actually get in? Because two, three things are there. One is everyone thinks that the government does nothing in terms of education. All the stories that I hear, all the examples that I hear, private players say government school mein kuch nahi hota hai, private schools are doing much better. Shed some light about that. Yeah, I want to know that.
Yeah, I think that's the most common perception of saying that what is really government or what is education department doing. It's very easy to critique, right? Like I think cricket and education are two things that we can very easily critique because we all are somewhere involved in that through our kids, ourselves and all of that. But when I got the opportunity to be inside the system and work, I think there is a lot that the governments are doing, and particularly now with the national education policy, now with what we have created in Gujarat, which is Vidya Samiksha Kendra, which is the first data-driven model which Honorable Prime Minister has himself acknowledged and has asked entire country to replicate that. So there is a data-driven decision making in the country, right? We are not talking of children will improve. We are now looking at the data of 70 lakh students in every block, in every cluster, in every village, in every school, in every class, and saying that this is where they have a problem. That's the data available with government. I don't think even private schools have that data.
Tell me more about what this thing looks like. What is this Vidya Samiksha Kendra that you helped build? Who are the people who actually built that, and what does it show? Like when you say this, what does it show?
See, Gujarat Education Department led by the Secretary, Dr. Vinod Rao, and the ministry, they brought this vision of saying that how do we do governance at scale, right? You can't go to 54,000 schools and see what's happening in each of the schools. The only option you had was data. Right? If you want to do governance at scale, if you want to monitor things, you need to start collecting data. And data collection itself is a big, big challenge, right? How do you get data from the remotest of village and ensure that it is a clean data? It's not an easy journey. It has been a difficult 3 years of journey where we tried, we failed, we learned, but we did not give up, right? We worked hard. And we continue to work very, very hard because now all states of India wanting to do that, we still want to be the hardest people working on this. Because when now we are able to collect data of every child's attendance every single day, we have weekly assessment tests where we collect data of every single child by learning outcome. We have our summative test where we again collect data. Then we have our school inspection for which we collect data. So we collect all of this data, triangulate all of that data to really get a holistic picture of what's the learning level in our state. So earlier we used to say, children can't read. Right? Every year there'll be a headline that children can't read,
Third standard
and this
children
and
can't
that.
read and all that.
And then we'll say, there's a problem, they can't do maths. Fine, there is a problem, right? But you have to go deeper to understand the problem. That's where the solution begins. So all this while there was this X-ray of some exam being taken and people will say, there's a problem. What we have done with data is we now really have an MRI where we are able to pinpoint where the problem is. And I think that's a great starting point. And now with entire country wanting to do this, at least we will know where the problem is. And I'm sure if you know the problem, I don't think many people will say, I don't want to solve this problem. I think people will work towards solving this problem. And I think fortunately with the national education policy, there is this whole environment also. I'm so happy that there's so much discussion about education. Whatever 15, 16 years of my career, I have never seen a prime time discussion about education, which is now happening. I have never seen discussion about data in education, which is now happening. I have never seen Gujarat being seen as pioneer in education the way it is recognized today. And I'm just lucky and happy to be part of that journey.
But that's incredible, right? Because I don't think people understand how important, rather how difficult it is to capture data. Because people think like they know what the problem is. Because symptomically, it's easy to say that there's a child who doesn't know or certain children can't read. But finding out exactly where the problem is at the point at which the error has occurred, even in a small school setting, is so difficult. Imagine doing that for 54,000 schools. Like I can't even begin to think about it. how does it make you feel? Yeah, how does it make you feel to be part of something like that and to make it
I
work?
think we are just so happy that there is this new outlook towards education, and which will drive the country, and hopefully we'll be able to unlock the demographic dividend that we are talking about, because then we will not let just the time decide the child's course of their life, but we will really be making difference in that timeline to help them achieve what they are capable of, right? Because we all have gone through schooling, and we all have gone through, but it has just been like passing standard after standard. Nobody really came to us and said, you should start focusing on this. I'm not saying that all of this will happen overnight, but at least there is this thinking, there is this possibility. So I'm very happy with where we have reached, but I think it's just 1% of where we could be, right? But it's a start, right? I have also been a critic of the system. It's very easy to be a critic, but then you either be on the fence and critique everything, or you get inside, take a positive outlook, work with the system, and make a difference. And I think there is really good work happening in the country. Maybe I think a lot of private schools, if they go and see Vidya Samiksha Kendra, they will realize that what the possibilities are.
I want you to tell me about the unsung heroes, about the guys who are working tirelessly, passionately, hard and fast at solving this problem. About this, how did you go about doing this Vidya Samiksha Kendra? Tell me about some experiences that you had, people that you met.
Yeah. No, I think so. In a private school, what do? You get an edtech guy, you get a hardware guy, and you hope they will solve your problem. And they can, because they have solved such problems earlier, right? They have gone through that situation. But who do you bring in for 70 lakh students? Nobody has solved that problem, right? So you have to fail to learn, right? And fortunately, we got that environment ecosystem where we were allowed to fail, but we learned so much more, and we kept coming back better and better to build what. So a lot of people that I work with, I don't think anybody knew what we are doing now, that this is how it should be done. We fortunately got people in our journey who lended that vision and said, oh, this is the possibility, this is how you can do it, this is the way to do it. So those people came together, but there are these people in government who are the MIS guys, right? Who have been there for 10 years, 15 years. They had a choice to say, oh, this is how it is. But they did not. They said, no, this is how it can be, right? And I think it's unbelievable, right? It's exactly opposite of the perception that we have कि कुछ नहीं होता, बहुत कुछ हो रहा है, खाली एक नजरिया, एक मौका, एक सोच हमें बदलने की जरूरत है.
जैसे एक private school principal या owner goes to that Vidya Samiksha Kendra, he's going to get blown away.
Absolutely.
He's going to be like, this is like a fairy tale.
Absolutely.
What is the kind of data that you guys are dashboarding?
Like what I said, right? Most important, attendance data. Like
that's 70 lakh records.
Yeah, I like when I got into it, and I was like, why are they so obsessed with attendance, right? Because when you're in a private school, you don't care, because
everyone comes
somebody's
to school.
paying fees, so everybody's coming to school. But when you go to a government setup, the context is very different, right? Are children really coming? If children are not coming for 10, 15 days, there are chances of dropout. Now, that's why attendance is important. You can't just say, oh, this child is not coming. Only when you're tracking him every day, you know that this child is there. And if he's not coming consistently, then you know there's a fear of him dropping out or her dropping out, right? And you can prevent that.
And kids dropping out of school
is there, right? Because of migration.
But that's very bad for the...
Yeah, that's like, that's taking away their life, right? So how can we allow to do that? And then I realized that one single data point of attendance can help you prevent that. At that scale, right? At scale, you don't have to do too many complex and fancy things. You have to do simple things like collecting attendance data every day, taking data of their assessments, right? So
that's 70 lakh student assessments. That means one assessment maybe 10 questions.
It's
that's like 7 crore
data points. Like huge. Like at Vidya Samiksha Kendra, every year maybe about 500 crore data points get collected. It all seems very big in hindsight, but when you keep doing it, you don't realize, like it's like your treadmill. You start at 8, then go to 12, then go to 15. And
so are you working with like data scientists, and are you working with people who are like, PhDs from the finest universities in the world?
No, we are working with the people who understand things from the ground, and they are acquiring the skill, because I think your context is so much more valuable than your just knowledge, right? If you don't have the context and if you just have knowledge, it's going to be a lot of theory, right? Like, I can go and give gyan, but if I don't understand that, oh, in Dang you will not have internet, and how will you solve for that, then your systems won't work. Now, these are the guys in the system who understand this, and they have upgraded their skills to be able to build this. So I don't think it's some scientists coming in or some visualizers. It's common sense, it's context, and it's hard work, right? That's the common theme. It's just sheer hard work every day.
It's amazing. I think people should just, school owners and school principals should actually do a field day to Vidya Samiksha Kendra and actually see the great stuff that you guys have done over there. And I'm also so glad that governments have, across the country are looking at this model and saying nothing like this exists.
Absolutely.
And they want it in their states. And then that 70 lakh goes to like 7 crore students. And I think that's how the country really gets transformed. And I'm so honored and happy to know that you had a major part, a directive part in making that happen for our country. What did you do for MBA Chaiwala?
I think we were just so impressed with Praful, right? This was like pre-COVID. We went to his chai ka shop, a small shop. We managed to drop tea, and he came and cleaned that, offered us an extra tea, spoke in English, managed to upsell a muska bun to us with the quality that he has. And then he reaches out to me on LinkedIn and say...
On LinkedIn,
right? Praful is a very smart guy. So everybody knows that. I don't think... He has all the blue ticks to prove that. So I have nobody to kind of really validate that. But we really saw the fire and the potential that he has. And he said, I want to do something. I want to build brand and all of that. And then we first said, अरे पर क्या करना क्या है, लोगो हम खाली लोगो नहीं बनाते, हम ब्रांड बनाते हैं. But he said, no, let's do it. And then COVID hit, and we said, okay, let's still do it, right? Like, we all were remote, and then we said, let's make a logo with your face on it, and the logo is going to look pink and yellow. And he was like, but बाकी सबका तो brown or green है, the chai walas, right? And then that's where what we said, we strongly feel that if you understand what business you are into, then you can build your brand so uniquely. And that's where we told him, and I think which he has really embedded in himself so much, that he's not in the business of chai, right? He's in the business of motivation and creating that inspiration for the people. And then when his face went on to that logo, I think then the rest is history, right? I think what he has done in 4 years, we are just so proud that we have been part of that journey. We have been able to seed that journey in a way. And he has done phenomenal stuff. So I think lots of credit to Praful to kind of take that thought forward and turn it into the 5th hottest startup of India, right? So we are just so happy that we have been able to contribute to it. He tells me it's $1 million logo, so I might have to bill him for that now. But yeah, we really enjoyed that.
Tell me, what is this thing about, you moving from your education and then branding and communication? What does a school or what does education in general absolutely need to do? What do you really feel like ये नहीं कर रहे हैं यार उन लोग, ये करना चाहिए उनको? From your experience, from your ground up, you're steeped in context. You understand impact. You are passionate about making change. What do you think schools and people in education need to do more of?
I think I've been saying this for maybe now 5-6 years. It sounded crazy then, but now I think with the national education policy, it is possible. I want a timetable in a school where it says the period 1 is curiosity, period 2 is communication, collaboration, and let's focus on skills rather than just focusing on subject, right? Where knowledge is no more a monopoly. It was first in the books and the libraries. That's why we went to the schools. But now it's everywhere, right? But that skill building is still because it's not a very linear thing. It's a mix of lots of things, which is what really educators, schools, school leaders, environment, friends, everybody together builds. So I feel that's what more schools should do. I also know it's easier said than done, but I think now there is this whole mahal environment to be able to do that. So I think that's what people should do. And I said, you do this because that's your best marketing, right? In education, you need to take your word of mouth to world of mouth. And it's not going to happen through advertising. I think advertising in education, excessive advertising in education, after a point is counterproductive, right? People start having trust issues of why they are advertising so much. But if you show what you are doing, then they'll trust you so much more. So if you are getting your children to sit on a video call with somebody in Japan and they're learning Japanese, and if you make a reel on that, like which you do amazingly well, then that's what world will appreciate. Now, you don't need a Times of India front page ad. You don't need a prime time TVC, and you still can connect to people so much more. I think that's what we need to do more. Schools are such amazing place to create crazy amount of documentation. We are not doing that enough. We are waiting for that something picture perfect to happen, which we will take and take it to the parent in an ad. I don't think we need that. We just need to open our doors and windows through digital channels to the world and let people see what we stand for. And that's why just having a play field or a swimming pool is not going to be enough, because you can't show children jumping into the pool every day. And that's why you need to really do something.
Do you think schools are actually standing for things? I mean, let's bear it all out, right? Like for schools that you know personally and not know personally, do you think there are schools that are actually standing for things? Do you think they know what business they're in? Do you think that they understand their core purpose? Do you think? Tell me about how does that fit for you?
Let me see it from the other viewpoint, right? If my consumer is asking for something, I will serve them that, right? If I'm opening a restaurant and everybody says that, oh, I understand that market needs Chinese, so I will have a Chinese restaurant, right? Because everybody wants Chinese there. But what are parents asking for? Are parents asking for something that school should change for? If not, then why would they? I don't think it's so much of a problem of a school. It's also largely a problem of parent. Like when we became parents, I thought, oh, we are so aware and so exposed and we read so much and we know this and rich dad, poor guy, all that things we know. And then we go to school and say, oh, but why you are not giving homework? Somehow we have that. So I think maybe our parents, my parent trusted my school and teachers so much more, which unfortunately after COVID has gone down more and more. And that's why schools I think there is this distance which is growing between school and the parents, because there is no alignment of what school wants to do to what parents are asking for. So I think even before schools are, whether they are standing for it or not, are even parents asking for it. And I think again, national education policy will push for that, because it is going to bring sea change. And I think more than schools, parents will have to absorb that this is what the country is moving towards. They will have to accept the change even before the school accepts the change. Because if they accept the change, if your assessment system changes, I don't see a reason why the system will not change and why people will not need to take a stand. So I think all that will happen. I don't blame it on schools. I think it's very difficult.
Who should move first?
I think parents. Parents need to move first, right? Parents need to really invest. We are trying to create proxy for parenting, right? By putting in money for a passion class, by subscribing to an app, giving the device. We are finding proxies of parenting, and we have tried to find a proxy with the school also. You take care of this. This is not my responsibility.
I also think actually, to put another point of view, I think schools, if they know what's right for kids, must have the spine to stand up and say, "Aisa karna chahiye." And they should even spend time trying to convince parents, to show their point of view, to communicate to the audience, to communicate to society that this is where we are heading. This is what needs to be done. This is the kind of pain points that are there in the, in the model as of now. I don't think there is the perfect model, right? It's always an evolving
But
sort
for
of
that,
model.
you need more full-time school owners like you. Also, full-time school owners have gone down, right? It's like a side gig for lots of people. So that will not happen, right? Unless if you are really owning this up. I think people will always listen to rational. I have not seen anybody in my life. If you give a good rational, he will say, "Oh no, I still don't believe this." I have never seen a person like the craziest person will believe that. But there has to be a rational. There has to be a commitment. There has to be a belief. There has to be a vision, and it has to come from somebody who is running this full time, right? Again, they are also trying to create proxies for themselves, which is not going to work. So if you see some of the more thoughtful schools have full-time school owners or school leaders, right? They are not part-time into it.
They're super invested in it.
Absolutely.
They're like tan man dhan, right? It's like completely in there, and they're working with parents, they're working with children alongside, understanding them. I think that distance as a factor, what you said, कि यार लोग दूर हो रहे हैं. On one end, I'm seeing government trying to go nearer and nearer and nearer to the citizen of the country, and on the other end, I'm seeing private schools trying to go further away. I don't think that's a model that's going to. I don't think it's going to serve any good by going away from the person who really needs your service.
Yeah, I think because then are we putting school at the center or are we putting child at the center? A parent itself is putting school at the center and not the child. Right?
Oh.
So if you put child at the center, you will say that these guys are also trying to help my child, right? Why should I fight with them? Right? So I think it's just the mindset and the trust that we need to get back into the system, and that being optimistic, saying that yes, this is our decade, India can do this, and we will have that positive outlook towards that happening, because we all can complain all day long about everything which is not right. But there are lots of right things also. We need to look at those things. And school is one of them. There are lots of right things that your schools also do. But you always see, oh, they didn't do this. My child was standing in the 4th row of the annual day. That,
My child was a tree.
I know it hurts, but is that the most important thing? That's what I feel.
So, come to think of that, I think school owners and school principals need to understand more about how they can communicate their vision and their mission to masses. What do you want to tell people like that? What do you if I put a school principal in front of you and say, "Samjhao inko," this is the 4 things that we can do, right? What do you think that could possibly be? Because, to a certain extent, we got to understand that these are people who are trained in education and not trained in for want of a better word, communication.
Yeah.
What do we tell them?
Yeah, but they'll have to learn, right?
Yeah.
If an educator has to be the learner. So I think going back to what I said, one is creating this environment for a lot of skill development of children. Put it in your timetable. One thing I have learned in 15 years is if it is on your timetable, it will happen. Otherwise, it will not happen. Make space on your timetable. Second, document every single thing. Like you have a cloud storage, fill it up with the documentation. 10, 15 years that child is in your school, give it to him that as a gift, as a parting gift, that this is all your documentation of your school life, right? Where are your school memories? You tell me. You can't take your phone and take selfies and put it on Facebook, right? And you're not on LinkedIn yet. Where are your school memories going to be? Whose responsibility it is? And it's the most beautiful time of your life, right? Then you are just running. But this is where you are exploring. That's where you are getting nourished. So second, I think, is the communication, documenting it. Third, I think, is just don't look at school, your own premises, your own building, trying to solve for everything. Go to other schools, collaborate. Don't just see them as competition. I think that's the biggest problem, right? Why are we not create a learning ecosystem? Why we want an Apple ecosystem, but we don't want a learning ecosystem. So I think that's the other thing we should do more. And maybe the last is being very authentic about doing all of this. and communicating it in a very authentic way. I don't think we have to be that sage on the stage as educators. We have to be one among lot of other learners and saying that maybe we know a little that we can share, but we still don't know everything. So yeah, this is what I.
That's
would say.
amazing. What a playbook that is. Yeah, I need more and more principals to hear that and start working on that. I also know you run a startup that now has been working for a couple of years now. You reached 30, 40 people, especially in the marketing and branding spaces. How was that experience for you? What are the highs and lows of something like that? Did it define you as a person?
No, I think it's what I love to do, right? Every day, think of how can we solve for business problems? How can we solve for communication? How can we reach people better? That's what we love to do. So it's that treadmill that you start enjoying after a point, right? It has that grilling phase. So when we started, we just started with 4 people. We are now close to 40 people.
What do you call it?
Because, and when we started, we were just doing all consulting and strategy, and then COVID happened and we were like, I don't know where this will go. Fortunately, we were not required to fire anybody. We were optimistic again. We kept hiring. We have been amazingly fortunate to have people from like 10 different states coming to Ahmedabad, working with us, which is what people find very strange, right? Like we have people from Arunachal to Uttar Pradesh to down south to Haryana, everywhere possible. And that's what makes for a great workplace creatively and collaboratively. And things have been good. I think we have been able to do things in a because way. Because
Why? Because I've never heard of a name like Because. Give me the backstory for Because.
So I
Because was named Because.
Because was named Because. So I've been on the other side of the table, right? I started my career with media, with Times of India, Sandesh, and I would interact with the agencies. But agency will come and ask for a brief. So they'll say, tell me, define your requirement, and I will solve it for you creatively. But I always felt that there was this dearth of a CMO who thinks of a solution for your larger business problem and does not come and ask you for a brief. He should come and ask you, will you tell me your business problem? And I will solve for that. Now to do...
What's a business problem?
So you might say that I want to...
Admissions.
Or I want to take my curriculum to other people. Now, if you tell me that, then we strategize, we build a whole playbook on what and how we will do things. Now, in that whole process, if I'll come and tell you, Willie, you should do this, why should you believe me? There has to be a rationale. And when I come and tell you, because of this, you should do this, again, if there is a good enough rationale, you will believe it. Right? Then that debate of Willie likes blue and I like yellow will not be there, because there is a rationale from which we are looking at. And that's why it's called Because. And there is a heart in our logo, because come from lots of thinking, but then there is a lot of heart into whatever we do. So I think it's a right mix of...
I love the fact that you bring in like research and reason, and not just because mujhe laga shayad aap ye karo.
I think agencies love to throw ideas, right?
Yeah, I mean,
copy and then say, oh, this is nice creative, you should do this campaign. But is this really needed for a brand, for a business, for a goal? That's the first question. And you have to have your loyalty. If I'm working with you, I have to have loyalty to your brand and not to you. Because you also should have your loyalty to your brand. Because if you want me to say yes to you, then maybe you should just hire some yes man, right? And I don't think any sensible businessman wants to do that. He wants his business to grow. He doesn't want his ego to grow. If business will grow, ego will grow.
But it's difficult, right? Because so many clients come in, and because they're paying clients, they almost start playing, they almost start prescribing what they want to do. ऐसा चाहिए, वैसा चाहिए, ये करो, वो करो.
But I think in life, it is very important to also know what you don't want to do, right? Apart from knowing. Because I think a lot of time we don't know what we want. But I think it is easier to articulate what you don't want. So I know what clients I don't want. I know the symptoms, I know the style, I know what they will say, and I don't work with them then. And fortunately, then universe conspires to bring you people that you should be working with. And we have been fortunate to work with edtech guys, colleges, education, schools, real estate, restaurant, everybody possible. And all of them trust us with this rational. They don't trust us with just creativity. कि अरे they have some nice people तो ये बहुत अच्छा बना लेंगे. वो तो कर ही लेंगे. That is required. But अच्छा सोच लेंगे, that is more important.
I think there's so much of downplay on strategy and so much of upplay on colors and visuals and all that.
Yeah.
It's almost like designing over what to design. I think that is something that happens. But talk about edtech, yeah. What a bloodbath at this point in time. It's kind of heart wrenching to hear. There's so many loss of jobs, companies going bust. What is happening on this whole? What's your take?
I think edtech is difficult, right? I think edtech is difficult. If I have to ask you to name any company which has been there for 2 decades and has maybe more than 500,000 users, like you'll not be able to, and there are like 3,000 edtech companies in India, right? And you still might not be able to name 5 who have, and who are not into hardware or who are purely into pedagogical stuff, who are into curriculum. You'll not be able to, like books and all, it's fine. But it's because it's very, very difficult, right? I think obviously what's happening is not great, but it's again like it's part of the journey, right? When you're growing, when you're accelerating, this kind of things might happen. And that doesn't mean that the sun is setting on edtech. I don't think that's going to happen. I think we'll come back stronger. We'll come back with again the models which are putting child at the center. Because again, maybe the models for everybody keeps moving with their center elements keep changing, and that's why all such things happen. I think schools, parents, edtech, everybody puts child at the center, everything will work fine. I don't think there will be too much of inorganic things happening.
I think everyone has been saying that in terms of they know we have to put the child in the center. They probably even think they are putting the child in the center, but when they take that decision, that's not how the decision actually kind of gets taken. And to a certain extent, what I heard you say about this Vidya Samiksha Kendra and the work that you did there was so beautifully you put it. You said, boss, problem hai, malum hai, problem hai. And then you're deep diving into that problem, getting your hands dirty, literally like working the night off to make sure that you solve this problem, right? Whereas on the other hand, there are people, as you said, fence sitters who say there's a problem there and they're trying to build a solution here and selling it to somebody else who probably doesn't have that problem in the first place. And it just feels like it's so misaligned and mismatched. But getting principals, school owners, teachers, parents to start taking responsibility. Yeah. And saying, problem है, ठीक है, लेकिन school नहीं बदलेंगे. Problem है, साथ में बैठ के काम करके इसको solve करेंगे.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's when we're going to, नहीं तो you're just going to be shop. You're just going to jump and you're going to start using your admission, let's say, you're just going to use that as blackmail and you're going to just like hop, and no one's ever going to make change happen. So do you actually believe that the government schools are going to get better, if not now, if they not already are, than private schools, unless they do something?
I think it's better is again a relative term. They'll definitely get better. They are definitely getting better. But if you say, will they become like the top international school of Bombay? I don't know that. Maybe they don't need to be. They need to do basics well. And I think we are on a very clear path to do that. Right? I think the great thing which is happening is a lot of which is being done, hopefully can't be undone now. So you can just build from here. Right? I think, and that's what it's organic. I don't think governments are in this race of scaling up and all of that. It's already scale, right? Like we don't need scale. We are already scaling up. So we are not running behind a number. Like there is no balance sheet. There is a learning outcome. Right? And that's why governments are placed to do that role so well. And I think there are lots of like multiple states. Gujarat is doing probably one of the best work and has led that change movement. And
you're somebody from the inside. You've seen it like, from the bystands. Right?
And very
front
honestly,
row seats.
And at times there have been days where I'll say, why are we even doing this? Are we ever going to succeed? Right? It's not that we have been like, oh, like this is how it's going to be. But I think when you keep working hard and if you're honest about the purpose, it works out. And in our case, it did work out. In lots of cases, it might not. In my life, lots of things have not worked out. But this has. And this is now going to create the impact. But we're going to live 70 years, 80 years. Even if one or two things work out, I think that's enough. That's what your purpose is in life.
And where does India study? I don't think India doesn't study in the top fanciest sort of international school.
Yeah, I think we in the city, we feel that, oh, the schools around us, the 5 kilometer is what Indian education system is. It is not, right? It is not. Like, Indian education system is not made of IB, IGCSE, CBSE schools. They are made of state board and vernacular schools. That's where India goes and studies, right? And I think with COVID, with the technology now in people's hand, with devices in hand, with 5G at our doorsteps, I think there is no reason why it will not happen, right? Like, your best teacher will be able to teach a child in Dang now. There is a possibility, an easy possibility. You don't have to do anything. The child doesn't have to do anything. Everything is available. We just need to start. We just need to collaborate. So I think it will happen. I'm very, very optimistic about it. And I think...
How do you see the change happening over the next, let's say, 5 or 10 years? I mean, with the national education policy coming in, that's going to be massive change. Finally, as you said, this discussion is center stage. People are talking about घर घर में बात चल रहा है इसके बारे में. And there are parents who come to me and say, sir, is your school national education policy compliant?
Yeah, I think, and that's also now, I think, the biggest marketing label that everybody uses, that NEP compliant and all of that. Because again, I don't think NEP is an external thing you can buy. It is a philosophy, or it's the way you operate, right? I think, so you can't buy it. You will have to build it. You'll have to embed it. So I think what change will happen, I don't have the magic ball to say that, but I can definitely say that system is going to be more accountable. And I think where there is accountability, there is definitely change which happens. So I think from a fundamental viewpoint, I think there will be change.
System thinking says what gets measured gets done.
Exactly.
So when you start measuring it, it starts getting done. This is incredible, right? Because what we want to do is to build a better country. We want to build a better nation. We want to build a happier, more successful, more helpful, more contributing society. And the future India is in the classrooms today. And, leveraging all the tech we have, leveraging all the, all the knowledge that we have, all the time that people put. I actually think teachers are the freedom fighters for the country all over again, right? This is also, they're making that change happen every single day. And as generals of that army, in terms of school principals and in terms of school trustees, there are risks we need to take. But if we don't take that risk, then who's going to take that risk?
Yeah. I think teachers are so underrated. Like, we all know that, and because lots of tech guys who came and say we will kind of do what teachers do have gone back to doing it very differently now, right? I think only if we can tell every tech company and every employee in a tech company, go in a school at least for a day and be in the teacher's shoe, I think the tech also will get so much better because of context. It is not. I have been in a school, you run a school. It's not easy. It is not easy. You can't manage your one child. How? Like, it's crazy. And with parents now, right, it's very, very difficult. I think teachers are so underrated, but they keep coming back. Because you can't put them out of the system. I think their roles will get evolved, but their roles will not get diminished for sure. And I think that's what we all need to acknowledge, that, and say that, okay, we have to work with teachers. Parents will have to work with teachers. Children will have to work with teachers. School leaders will have to work with teachers for all this to happen. So it will happen.
Generally in life, tell me, Aditya, what are you thinking about now? What is that? Because you're such a thinker. What are you thinking about? What are those questions that you're thinking about? What are you trying to solve for? Generally.
I think I just feel that if we can, whatever we have learned in last 3-4 years, working with government particularly and collaborating with them to do whatever little we have done, I would want to share that with more and more people so they don't have to go through the same mistakes. Because I think that's where we lose the opportunity. because you learn from other people's mistake and you build on that. So my only intention right now is to share that with more and more people so that it can impact so many more people, right? And which I'm trying to do in whatever capacity I can. So it's not that philosophical view that I want, so many children to get impacted. It's just saying that I have done it, you learn from it and take it forward, right? Why would you want to reinvent the whole thing and say, I will do a tender for the system and this hardware and this? And I said, don't do that, right? You don't need that. We have gone through that and you don't need that. So my one focus is that. I think my second focus is to keep bringing the best people at Because. I think I don't know if we can ever be a unicorn, but we definitely want to be a place where we have unicorns. We have a team of people who are amazing, magical, spirited, and they do amazing. And I'm extremely proud of the kind of team that we have put together. And I would just want to continue because there's just so much I learn from them. Like they are my school. Right? They are teaching me so much every single day. I am doing things which I never imagined I would do or I could do. I'm doing it because they are doing it. And they are 23-year-old who are teaching me. So they are my teachers now. And I want to keep learning from them. So if I keep bringing good people, I'll keep learning.
That's amazing because I haven't actually come across organizations when it comes to branding, marketing, or generally developing or catering or optimizing for business in education space. Like you have to sit and really, like hit your head against a wall and explain to them about education ye hota hai, right? Because they're so used to selling paste and I don't know what, soap and shampoo that they just don't get how to sell education. And it's just such a pleasure for me to see that you have this whole team so geared to be able to support people in education, and you personally have a passion for it and you have a flair, for communicating the real essence of what people are trying to do. So I think it's less of the creative expertise that you bring, but more of that transformational experience that entrepreneurs will have working with you, so that you can bring in clarity for them in itself. So such a super conversation. I'm going to try something that I've not tried before. You don't know who's the next person on my podcast. Is there a question you want this person that you don't know is coming? Is there a question that you want to ask the next person on the podcast?
What is the most vulnerable thing that you would want to share with your team?
Okay. What is the most vulnerable thing that you want to share with your team? Okay.
I think vulnerability connects people like nothing else can. Because it builds trust. So I think, anybody next, they can maybe share that.
I'm going to ask that question then. Thank you so much, Aditya Shah. Continue doing the amazing work that you're doing. And I really hope that people who are listening to our conversation, be it EdTech, school principals, trustees, people in the government, anyone who cares about this country and education, should reach out to you on whatever social platforms that you're available. And I know for a fact that you will be happy to talk to them.
Happy to help anybody who wants to make a difference.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Willie. This was amazing. And one thing that I want to say is that I hope they don't edit it, but like I just admire your ability to turn ideas into action, because I know the time when we discuss the podcast and you wanted to start to now season 2. I think that's amazing. I think, and we need more people like this who just are not sitting on ideas but executing ideas, not worrying about how perfect it will be, but they know it will get perfect. So I think hats off to you for doing this and for the kind of energy you bring to every podcast, whether it's going to get 2,000 views or 4,000 views, doesn't matter to you. You bring in that spirit every single time. So I think you are doing an amazing, amazing job. I think this documentation that you are doing is going to be so much valuable in next few years, that should be what should be taught in the schools now going forward. So thank you so much for doing this. And this is what your contribution, I think, is to the society right now.
Thank you, Aditya. Thank you.
Thank you.